Hello everyone, my name is AndrewAJT and welcome to a new video. Before we get started, I did find something that is pretty interesting recently. I found my old notebook, which I used to make notes about video games. There's a lot of stuff about Rome Total War, which I mentioned in my top 10 favorite games video, but there is some RuneScape stuff as well. It's nothing that interesting, but it is worth showing. For example, my favorite RS music at the time, maybe around over a dozen years ago. Funny Bunnies from the 06 Easter event, Emotion. Autumn Voyage I must have really liked because I wrote it twice, even though I misspelled it both times. Also, Sea Shanty 2 I liked before it was popular. I really enjoyed doing quests, and you can see there's a lot of quest-related songs, especially the Goblin ones. I wish they would bring some more to old school. I'm pretty sure they do have Land of the Goblins partially completed in the original 07 backup, so it would be cool if it was finished. This must have been doing the Underground Pass where you have to fight those paladins, which I always thought was a strange part of the quest because really, they don't do anything to you. I don't understand why you have to fight them. Here's when I did Lunar Diplomacy in October of 2009, and you have to find that little path, and I wrote Woot on the side, which people used to say Woot constantly back then, unironically. It's always interesting to me that words like Woot and Raffle and Owned and For the Win are words that were so common back in the day, but no one really says them anymore. I had to do some research on this one because I don't know why I wrote all these weird goblin items down. And it turns out this is doing the Chosen Commander quest, where you actually do need some of these items, and I guess I just wrote them down here. That would be a cool quest to have as well, because you can get the Zanuck crossbow as a reward. Did you guys ever take notes of video games when you would play them? I would pretty rarely do this, but I guess I did a little bit, as you see here. Let me know if you guys did. So for the last couple weeks, I've basically been doing what you're seeing here, AFKing the fight caves for a Jad pet, which is kind of a weird goal to go for, because if you do Slayer a lot, you actually have a much better chance of getting it. It's a 1 in 100 chance from a Jad kill on task, whereas it's 1 in 200 off task. But I'm already 99, and if I just want to get the Jad pet, doing it through Slayer is obviously going to take much longer. I'm not really someone who enjoys training skills past 99 anyway. Slayer is a bit of an exception. Sometimes I will do it because there are certain bosses you can only fight on a Slayer task. Actually, there's several. But the good thing is, if you do it off task, you can still trade in your Fire Cape after, and that's an additional 1 in 200 chance, so it's basically like you're getting 2 chances of a 1 in 200 event happening. Now, I'm not actually sure what the average would be. Like, how many tries would it take on average to get a 2 out of 200 event? Would it just be 100? And also, what are the odds of actually getting it in one round of killing Jad and trading in your Fire Cape? They're 2 in 200, but is that the same as 1 in 100? I really don't think that's the case, because if you did it 100 times, it's not like your odds would be 200 out of 200. It doesn't work that way, so if anyone knows about statistics in that way, I was actually good at statistics, but this is just making my head spin. Let me know in the comments. Here's the gear that I've been using, which I'll show you here. It has a lot of defense, range bonus, prayer, so I can pretty much tank and AFK everything. There's really no need to safe spot everything. Sometimes I will kind of run the monsters while fighting them, but that's about it. One thing that's really annoying is if you lag and die or something, and you have to leave the cave and restart, you can't actually go back in for like a long time. This is super annoying. I think this is because people used to actually AFK train in here, which is kind of dumb, and they had to make this, so you can actually be standing out here a very long time if you want to go back in. It's really annoying. I don't just AFK the whole thing though. For waves 31 and up, I actually pay a little bit of attention because you want to use the Twisted Bow on the 360s, and it really shreds them pretty fast. The Blowpipe actually is pretty decent on them, so if you really wanted, you could probably just put on full Justicar and Blowpipe the whole thing and not even look at the screen, but that would be a little bit slower. If I was to do a speed run, I could probably do this in about 30 minutes or so. Honestly, I haven't tried. It's kind of dumb to speedrun this because it relies on spawns, and also you just have to pay full attention. You have to make sure you're blowpiping everything right away. It's not really a fun speedrun to do, honestly. I really like speedruns of other games, but I really have never found a speedrun of RuneScape that actually looks interesting. I know they did a speedrun competition of the fight caves a couple years ago, and that would have been just so RNG based to try to win it. And it would have taken some skill as well, to be fair, but it's overall just kind of a wacky speedrun to even try. The Twisted Bow is actually surprisingly decent against the other monsters. The Twisted Bow is really bad against things that don't have a magic level, but most of these guys actually do have a little bit of a magic level. and you can actually one-hit the Firebird enemies pretty reliably, but aside from that, it's still better to use the blowpipe against them and pretty much everything else, because if you miss with the Twisted Bow, it's really slow. So as far as the Jads, I've done probably around a dozen just in the last week or so, and I remember hearing that the Jad would always spawn where the light orange 360 is, and that doesn't seem to be necessarily always the case. It's like kind of true, but he might be a little bit off. There's people who know way more about this than me though. This place has pretty much been studied to almost infinity. So one other question with Jad is, should I even bother tagging off the healers? Now, I'm not necessarily in the best range bonus gear. I can actually take off my helmet and that helps a tiny bit, but not really. Most of the time I forget. The healers can be out-hit as far as defeating it with the Twisted Bow, but it requires some luck. You basically just have to get a few good hits in a row. And if that doesn't happen, and it actually does happen here, then the fight can actually go on for quite a while. So usually I do tag the healers off, but if you want to have the fastest possible fight with the Twisted Bow, you can try your luck without it. Sometimes I actually forget the Twisted Bow, and that kind of sucks, but it's still pretty decent with the blowpipe. I think a lot of people have trouble with Jad for the first time because they don't realize that you actually have a lot of time to switch prayers. Like, it doesn't really work the same way as normal enemies. Normally when an enemy fires like a spell at you or an arrow, you have to be praying right as they're firing it, like the same tick. Whereas with Jad, I'm not sure the exact timing, but I'm pretty sure you have an extra moment to switch the prayers, at least in my experience, because there's been times where I switch pretty late and I still get it. Of course, I had to do 5 Jads during the Inferno, so this is pretty easy to do now. I didn't realize either that the Jads in the Inferno are actually significantly stronger. Like, not too much stronger, but they're definitely buffed pretty noticeably. The two biggest differences is the normal Jad only has a max hit of 97, so you can just be 99 HP and you'll be safe. Especially if you're 115, you're very safe. Whereas the Inferno Jad can max a 113, so unless you're all the way up at 115, which goes down by itself anyway, you can still be vulnerable. Also, the biggest difference is the Inferno Jad has 350 HP compared to 250, so it just takes a lot longer to kill. I remember the first time doing Jad, I actually didn't even see Jad before I died back in pre-EOC. It took me a lot of tries, I think like 6 or 7, just like the Inferno did. I think it's pretty cool that Jad and the Inferno kind of are similar in the sense that it's not really skill-based, it's more trial and error. It's just having enough attempts at it to know what you're supposed to do. I don't think you have to be a fantastic PVMer to beat either of them. People actually ask me for Inferno advice pretty often, which I don't mind. I was actually thinking of making a little Inferno advice video, even though I do have my little playlist for it already, but maybe just to condense some of the points. Although I've still only done it once, so maybe I'll wait till I do some more for that. I think people just relate to my mindset of, I only need to do this once, what is the easiest possible way to do it? I don't care if it looks newbie, or the completion time takes a long time, I just want to get it done. Oh, and by the way, I'm not just saving my capes. I know some people do this where they get a full inventory of fire capes and then trade them in. I always thought that was kind of dumb, because what if you get it within like 3, and now you just have an extra 25 fire capes for no reason? I guess it could be fun for a video. I don't really do that with anything though. Like, for example, people have loot tabs. I'm always like, if I get a big drop or something, I want to sell it right away so I can make use of that GP for something else. It's doing me no good to just sit in the bank and be worth millions, and I can't use it yet. This is kind of why this grind sucks, because every time I beat Jad and then don't get the pet, and I trade in the fire cape and don't get the pet, it's like, well, I just wasted 40 minutes. Time to go waste another 40 minutes, because you don't actually get anything else from beating this. I mean, you get some Tokal, which basically pays for some of your supplies, but not even really that much. And you get range XP, but I'm already maxed, so that's not really helpful. The reason I really like going for most pets is because even if you don't get the pet, you get a lot of other stuff. For example, at DKs, you're pretty much leaving every trip with at least a mil in the bones, and you can get the rings and clue scrolls, and it's also just plenty of variety. Whereas this, you either get the pet or you don't, and all of you guys watching this who don't have a Jad pet are just as close to getting one as I am, even though I've been doing this all week. Although, you could say the same thing about any pet, but at least I would have gotten, for example, if I was doing Saradomin, some Armadillo crossbows or hilts or something. Whereas with this, I basically have nothing to show for it except my kill count being higher. The Jad kill count record is actually not even that high. It's like actually fairly doable. Like, it would probably take around a couple months or something, which isn't that bad considering it's literally Jad, one of the most popular bosses, but there's basically no point to doing it because you would get the pet long before you reach it. I should actually do the Karamja diary because I could actually boost for it now. I've been doing a lot of rune crafting, it gives you double Tokal and also a free revive every day, which would be pretty useful because I have died a few times just not paying attention or from lag or something. Maybe I'll try some speedruns of this just for the heck of it, and also maybe it's worth doing a couple runs with melee. Melee is kind of annoying because you have to kind of attack the 360s and run away every single hit. It's just not that fun, but it's fun to fight Jad with melee. Well, there's all my thoughts on the Fight Caves grind. It's definitely different. I feel like it shouldn't take too long because the drop rate is pretty reasonable. I'm sure I jinxed it by saying that though. But the pet is one of my favorites, so I hope I get it soon. Do you guys have it? And if not, what pet are you going for currently? Definitely hit the like button and make sure to sub if you haven't already. I upload new videos every Tuesday, so you can hit the bell and set it to all notifications to get a notification for the weekly upload so you won't miss it. You can join my clan chat up on screen and join our Discord server down below. We're always accepting new members. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter down below, and if you want to support the channel even further, you can check out my Patreon page in the end screen. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.